Holyoke High School has the fourth highest rate of suspension for Latino students in the U.S. Around the time the school was placed under receivership in 2015, educators and students began using restorative justice as a way to de-escalate and extinguish potentially harmful situations. When I went to Holyoke High, I was able to talk to Principal Dana Brown and Palante interventionist Ro Siegel. Brown started at Holyoke High School in August 2017 as interim principal.
So I was a high school principal in the eastern part of the state at Malden High School for 13 years, and then I worked at a community college for 1 year. Then Dr. Stevens Reich asked me to come out here for this year as interim principal.
So my name is Ro Siegel. I'm a restorative justice interventionist here. So we're a staff of 3, but we also have other folks who come in and help sometimes, but there's 2 interventionists and 1 director. So
Brown started at Holyoke 3 years after students started leading Palante. Though he is a school administrator, he does not lead many Palante circles. That is the job of students.
My role is to help people sort of navigate when restorative justice might be appropriate and when it might not be appropriate. The circle was run by 2 student facilitators. I'm just part of that circle. I'm not the principal.
Okay.
And so that's spelled out very clearly when those types of circles are run, that I am a participant. I am not leading the circle. I'm not the principal at that point.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the student facilitators? Like, how are they trained? Who are they?
So they're part of the Restorative Justice Program. Mm-hmm. You know, they get trained by Luke Woodward and Joe Katz and others. And so it's a class. They meet regularly. They get trained. And so they know exactly what to do. They know how to sort of paint the picture of what's going to happen in the circle. They know how to move on when necessary. They know how to go back and recap when necessary, and they know when to end when necessary. So
on top of this, facilitators learn how these circles fit into the larger worldview.
We learn what it means to sit in circle, like how that's connected to indigenous philosophy and like shifting our worldview away from a Western ideology, and really centering like race, power, and privilege in our work in restorative justice, so that when we're doing these circles that are like, yes, repairing relationships, yes, trying to make things right again, it's also making things right on a broader scale. We do a lot of value building and team building before we even go into the problem, and I think that helps everyone kind of be able to bring themselves fully. I think Palante is really unique because it is so easy. Having young people at the forefront of like solving their own problems and deciding how their school needs to change and fighting for those changes is going to push us in the direction that we need to go.
Sure. Brown explained that restorative justice is a way to get to the deeper roots of incidents and help students practice communicating their emotions maturely. He said that Palante circles have helped not only to de-escalate, but also to prevent situations from escalating to a point where routine discipline like suspensions would have come into play. They've also allowed students in crises to talk with trusted adults of their choosing about how to cope and move forward in school.
It's an opportunity for people to talk about why they're here and why they feel either hurt or afflicted in some way. And it's less about blame, and it's less about finger pointing, and it's more about, you know, this is how I felt when you did this to me, and then, okay, well, now how do we get beyond this, and what are the next steps so that this doesn't happen again? And
we come in like with a very specific angle, and that is to like figure out like what is the root of the problem, what needs to happen so that we can like actually address it from where it's starting. And so once a restorative justice circle is finished, there's generally no more need to fight. There's generally no more need to like continue to jeopardize their academics.
Siegel said that Palante is meant to fight the school-to-prison pipeline that has manifested in Holyoke largely due to high suspension rates.
Historically, this high school has been ground zero for the school-to-prison pipeline in Massachusetts. A few years back, we were ranked as like the 4th highest school with like the highest number of disparities in terms of punishments for Latino students specifically. And since then, the Restorative Justice Program has been trying to do a lot of work, and suspensions have gone down a lot since that number came out. But what we know about suspensions is that every time, like even just one suspension, greatly increases a student's risk at becoming part of the like carceral system. Because the more you keep kids in school, the less likely they're going to end up in jail.
As far as the numbers go, Principal Brown was unable to provide me with the most recent statistics on the change in suspensions, but he was able to paint a picture for how that number and some others have changed. Holyoke's suspension rates are at least 5 times the state's. It peaked in 2010 and has been slowly but not significantly declining since then.
We have seen a dip in both our in-house and out-of-school suspension rates. I know we're down some percentage points from last year at this point in terms of out-of-school suspensions. We're also down in the number of fights the school has had this year. When I talk to a lot of students, they think it's a significant number from last year to this year, and I think again, restorative justice plays some role in
Brown also said that the U.S. Department of Education has put emphasis recently on supporting students with emotional disturbances.
Within the Department of Education, there's really been in the last year and a half, 2 years, a real big focus on social emotional learning and mental health of students and the need to get more counseling, restorative justice as an option for schools, training. So I think it's been a pretty good focus.
As a school district, Holyoke is still working on this through the continued use of Palante.
We may be on a track as a school whereby restorative justice becomes a bigger piece of the puzzle when solving problems. You just can't bring restorative justice to a school and say, you're now a restorative justice school, here's the program, go do it. It takes a lot of groundwork, you have to lay the foundation, sometimes over more than 1 year, before restorative justice can become part of your DNA and part of your culture.
Brown said student acceptance of this practice of conflict resolution will only come with more time.
The school is not there yet. I think it's going to take more time for this to become fully embedded in the school, fully accepted, fully agreed to by everyone that this is part of a holistic community. It's not, and so when you put all of that together, I think it's going to take a few more years, but the trend up is good.